At the end of 2025, the Swiss watch industry was really on a knife's edge after a tough 4 month losing streak. So the big question was, did the all important holiday month of December bring more bad news, or did we see a surprise turnaround? Let's dive into the numbers and find out. And just so you know where all this is coming from, for this explainer, we are going straight to the source. Every single number you're about to see is pulled directly from the official December 2025 report published by the Federation of the Swiss Watch Industry, also known as the FH. So, this is the main question we're tackling today. After a pretty rough patch from August all the way to November, everyone's eyes were on these numbers to see if the industry could pull off some kind of holiday miracle. And the answer is a resounding yes. Experts didn't just stop their slide, they actually bounced back with a really solid 3.3% increase. A very, very welcome sign for the industry, for sure. Okay, so let's dig into the details of this December comeback. We're going to unpack what these numbers really tell us about the health of the Swiss watch market. December was definitely strong, hitting 2.1 billion francs. But, and this is an important but, we have to remember this was just one good month in what was a pretty challenging year overall. The annual total was 25.6 billion francs, which is still down 1.7% from the year before. So, yeah, this comeback needs a little context. Now, as you know, not all watches are created equal. To really get what happened in this recovery, we need to break down exactly which kinds of timepieces were, flying off the shelves. So let's look at the data by material and by price. Okay, so this table breaks down all the exports by the material they're made of. I know it's a lot of data to look at, but trust me, there is one single row in here that tells a massive story about this comeback. Let's zero in on that. And here it is. This is the key insight. While your standard steel and precious metal watches actually declined in value, look at this. Bimetallic watches, that's your gold and steel mix, they absolutely exploded with a massive 41.2% increase. That right there was the real engine behind this whole recovery. But value, that's only half the story, right? When we look at volume, so the actual number of watches sold, it's steel that's leading the charge with a 9% jump. So while gold steel brought in the big money, it was the more accessible steel watches that were really moving in the highest numbers. Now, looking at the price points tells another really interesting part of the story. The high end, we're talking watches over 3,000 francs, that was the main value driver, growing by 2.1%. But the real shocker was the 200 to 500 franc category. It jumped over 20%. So what's going on there? Well, the report explains this with a term called a favorable base effect. And all that really means is that sales in this price range were so bad the year before that it was pretty easy to show a huge percentage increase this year. So while 20% growth is great, it's a little less amazing when you realize the starting point was so low. Okay, so we know what's selling, but where are these watches actually being sold? The answer reveals a story of some pretty dramatic contrasts all across the globe. The global market in December was really a tale of two regions. It was night and day. On one side, you have the West, especially the US and France, just posting incredible numbers. And on the other side, key markets in Asia that have historically been absolute powerhouses, they were in decline. Let's start with the industry's biggest market, the United States. It saw incredibly strong growth, surging by over 19%. Just a huge performance. But if you think that's impressive, get a load of France, a massive 50.9% increase. This completely flips the negative trend we had been seeing in the French market, making it a real standout performer in Europe. Now for the other side of that story. Hong Kong, which has always been such a vital hub for luxury watches, continued to struggle, with exports falling by 8%. And it was a very similar story in mainland China, another absolutely critical market which saw a decline of almost 7%. This weakness in Asia really underscores how much the industry is relying on the strength of the American market right now. So, after throwing all that data at you, what are the key takeaways? What does this December surprise really mean for the Swiss watch industry as a whole? All right, let's recap the big points. First, a strong December rebound broke that 4-month losing streak. The hero of this story? The gold steel watch with that massive jump in value.
Geographically, it's a tale of two markets. The West is booming, while Asia is faltering. And finally, no surprise here, the high-end luxury segment is still the most valuable part of the market.
And that leaves us with the million-dollar question, doesn't it? Was this strong December just a one-off holiday boost? Or is this the start of a genuine, sustainable recovery for the Swiss watch industry in the year ahead? I guess only time will tell.